And our special guest tonight is Dr. Thomas Boving of the University of Rhode Island Department of Geosciences. Dr. Boving is the head of the three-member team at URI who will be monitoring and overseeing this well water study that is all about learning more about our groundwater resources in areas of town that depend on well water, drinking water wells, and also depend on on-site wastewater treatment systems. So Dr. Boving and his two colleagues, Dr. Sony Pratt, who, if you were at our last workshop, was leading that workshop, and also Dr. Christopher Rusinello. So I just wanted to say that this study is really part of a larger effort on the part of the town of Tiverton to understand more about its infrastructure, both its built infrastructure, like our water systems and our sewer system, but also our natural infrastructure, which is groundwater, and what the capabilities are of that infrastructure to support future housing development, and what the limitations are. Because if we have development that exceeds the capabilities of the groundwater, then we're going to have problems with septic systems sending leachate into wells, and we don't want that. That has already happened on Canonicus Island, the town of Jamestown, and they have very similar conditions, soil types, and water tables to Tiverton. So we have already been warned by URI's Cooperative Extension Service about that risk. So having said that, I'm happy to turn the program over to Dr. Thomas Boving, and he will give us some slides and then open it up perhaps for questions.
Thank you so much for your introduction. And I'm bringing up PowerPoint. It's no worries, it's not a full-blown lecture. If you don't mind, I stand up. You can see me, hopefully you can hear me. And up front, if you look around from, my accent is German. So even after 30 years, I still have it. I won't get rid of it. Can't get rid of it. Okay, and I'm talking. So first of all, thank you for being here. You're taking time out of your evening, and I appreciate that you giving me and my colleagues a chance to present what this study is about and what we're trying to do for the town. And also, I applaud the town for being proactive in this very contentious area, how to manage natural resources, the demand on natural resources with growth. Because we're living in times where we're stretching our resources, and we need to be careful how we proceed into the future, making sure that our kids, our grandchildren, have an environment they can live in and be proud of stewardship. So I will jump over this first slide here, but maybe not, because my students just walked in. Welcome, students. Gabrina, you may want to stand up, and Andreas. They will be very much critical to this project because they will be collecting the water samples that you guys drop off here in this building. And then they take it to the lab and will run the analysis for bacteria, for nutrients, for major anions, cations. They help us to then put that all together in a report that we then present to the town once we have enough data to come to conclusions. Sony Pradaman, she is, some of you already met her, my colleague, hydrogeologist. She's in El Paso tonight at a conference, so she expresses her apologies for not being here. And Christopher Rosinello, who is one of our junior professors, also a hydrologist, very good in modeling, so basically taking the data that we're collecting and maybe in the future create a deeper understanding through modeling exercises. Myself, you already introduced me, I'm a hydrogeologist. I am at ERI for 26 years, got my PhD in Arizona, and like I said, I'm originally from Germany. So the town asked us to evaluate the groundwater resources. So groundwater is the invisible water. It is even hard for my students sometimes to understand what is groundwater, because you don't see it. Surface water, yes, sure, you can go to a river, you can go to a pond and swim in the water. Groundwater, you only see it when you have a well, you look down into the well and see the water table. Now, it is super important that we understand that both groundwater and surface water are connected, part of the same system. So the water table in a river or in a lake often corresponds very closely to the water table in a well a few feet away or even farther away, because it's part of the same system. And it gets more complicated, and I won't bore you with the details when we talk about aquifers, unconfined, confined. Bottom line is, if you envision water expressed as surface water and groundwater, the two are connected. So we need to understand what we can't see. For that, we need access to wells, because the wells are the only direct observation point for us. There are other geochemical, geophysical methods, but having a well, we can take a water sample, we can take it to a lab, and we then can tell you what's in the water. That's about water quality. The other idea is water quantity. How much water is there? Right? You can have tons of groundwater, but if it's polluted, what use is it? You can't drink it. So we always think in terms of groundwater quantity and groundwater quality. And there goes my slide.
It takes a minute sometimes.
Okay. All right. So wait. Let me see. Maybe I can. Oh, I don't. Like the next expert. You jump in. The next slide we're going to see is a map.
Some people have
Map
a hard
of
time hearing.
groundwater. So the map was published in 1964. I was born in 1964, so I'm dating myself here. That's a long time. So since then, a lot of things happened. Yeah, you can hear me, right? I'm projecting to a lot of students in the big auditorium. So the map that hopefully you can see soon is from 1964. Think back what Tiverton looked like 50, 60 years ago. Today, very different, right? A lot of more developments, more industry, more demands, more wells, more everything, roads. So yeah, we have only that information. So we need to do something about filling these data gaps that clearly exist. And that's part of this project, to gather new information, to basically bring us up to speed where the town is currently, and how we're doing now and what can we do in the future. Again, if you want to buy a house, and it turns out the water is either not there or not enough, or the water is polluted, not a good situation. And I think the town is doing the right thing, thinking into the future and trying to avoid these situations where people are forced to, drill deeper wells or bring in water trucks. These are not the situation we want. I worked a lot in India and Indonesia, and I can tell you stories about in these water-stressed countries what people need to do, have to do in order to make sure they have water. We don't want that, really. This is, and this can be avoided, and if we ever get to see my slides again, I will show you some more information about this. Okay, so we identified gaps in our knowledge. We took what information is there and basically assessed where would we gain the most information. Tiverton is a large place, and some areas are already on water, they have public water supply, but the areas that are on well water are the most vulnerable in the sense that if your well runs dry or it's polluted, game over. So most of these properties are in the southern part of Tiverton. And in that southern part, we're trying to gain information that we currently don't have. And that's fine, I'm going to keep talking. So, southern part of Tiverton. What we're asking you to do is assist us, give us access to your wells, to the water that comes from the subsurface. And we come and provide you the sample bottles. We will train you. I will talk about a little bit tonight. What you need to do is very simple, straightforward. Just waiting for my slides. But we will repeat that a few days before the actual water sampling is taking place. Right now we're thinking October 15th. That's Wednesday. And we would like to invite you either the Friday before, the Monday before. We haven't nailed that down, but there will be a letter or email going out to people who participate in the study. That's why my students will be here, my colleague will be here, and we will tell you exactly what to do as a refresher.
We're trying to reboot right now.
Yeah, go ahead. So, let me just tell you briefly how this sampling works. You start your faucet, you let the water run 2, 3, maybe 5 minutes. And that's to clear out the line, any water that's stagnant in there. You find actually when you sample water that has been sitting in the line, a slightly elevated concentration of copper, for example, just because copper tubing, overnight, leaching, a little bit of increase, very normal, very typical, and that's actually no problem. But we want to know what comes out of your well. So by running the water for 3, 4, 5 minutes ensures us we're collecting water samples that is representative. We need to ask you to think about your water system. Some of you may have burner filters. Some of you have a water softener. Some of you may have a water treatment system. Can anybody raise their arms about filters? Yeah. That's great. Keeps you healthy and safe. But for our study, that's not good. We need water before the filter, because otherwise we're measuring how good your filter works, but we don't know how the quality of the water is eventually. So if you have a faucet that is before a filter, so basically assume the pipe from the well enters your house somewhere, and there's probably going to be a faucet. The plumbers want that because if they maintain your system, that's where they would drain the system. This would be the sampling spot, because that's the water coming right from the well. So if you have access and are willing to open that faucet, that's the water we're looking for. Let it run for 3, 5 minutes. Then we give you a plastic bottle, special plastic bottle, and it's a plastic bottle. It's nothing special about it, but it is sterile, meaning we have cleaned it so it doesn't contain any bacteria and also no other contaminations that don't belong. Right? The last thing we need to come with a dirty bottle and tell you your water is dirty because we use the dirty bottle. So we will provide you with a clean bottle that's sterile, and all you need to do is fill it up to the brim and close the lid. We will give you a sticker where you write your name and the date, possibly the address, so we can clearly identify the sample to the location. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Thank you.
That's too fast. Okay, let me just jump over details. Okay, so that's where I'm right now. Quality assurance. So the water sample is collected in this clean water bottle, and this is the important part. When we analyze for bacteria, we only have a small window of time, no more than 24 hours. The shorter the period, the better it is. So 24 hours maximum. So we need to ensure that when you collect the sample on October 15th, that you drop off the sample on October 15th, that we are here on October 15th, and drive to our lab and start the process. If you wait till the 16th, you might as well dump the water right out, because it doesn't give us the quality results that we're looking for. Bacteria samples must be analyzed within 24 hours. So this is somewhat tricky. So, and I totally understand that some of you maybe have a vacation plan for October 15th. Obviously, I mean, unless you want to postpone your vacation to take part in this event, we may not be able to analyze your sample on that day. But hopefully most of us have time and can manage to take the water sample, bring it over here, or maybe the town hall, we can decide what is more convenient. We will tell you. So bottom line is 24 hours maximum. If you can, please take the samples out of the sunlight. Why is that? Because if you let a plastic bottle, it's a clear plastic bottle, in the sun is sterilizing the water. It's actually an ancient trick from our forebears. They would leave dirty water in the sun for a day, and the water would be much cleaner. That's great, but again, it doesn't tell us anything about your water. If you leave it out in the sun, it's not the same water coming out of the well. So if you can put it in ideally in a cooler with a little ice, keep the lid shut, bring it over here, that would be ideal. We will bring our own cooler, collect all the samples, and bring it to our lab, cooled, make sure it remains cooled, and that's what we do, ensuring the quality of the sample. I already mentioned water must be collected from taps after letting them run, and from taps that are not after filter. That's also very important. And we definitely don't want garden hoses for obvious reasons. I mean, you wouldn't drink the water coming from a garden hose, but same is true for the sample. It looks not the same once it passes through a garden hose. So today I'm just giving you a brief overview, but you see it's not it's not brain surgery. Collecting a sample, putting it in a cooler, carrying it over here for drop-off. The rest we take care of. But we will come again with a kit. Each of you will get a kit with instructions, and we'll also talk more about it. It's just as a refresher a couple of days before the Wednesday 15th. Sampling date. And this will be the first event. We're going to have successive events. We want to ideally capture an entire year's worth by quarters. So if we can manage 4 of these events, that would tell us a little bit about what's the difference between October, January, April, and then summer. Because there will be seasonal differences. Because more people live in the summer here than in the winter, and there's many reasons why we want to have seasonality. So that information will be reported back, but we will ensure that the information is anonymous in a way that only you get your addresses worth of information. We will put all this information into a database and basically analyze the data. Identify areas where it could be concerned. We don't know yet. We don't know, we have no data. So, but if we can single on areas that water quality is good, that's good. if we can single out areas where there's concern, that's where we then can focus our resources. Resources means we have to find out why is the water good or bad in certain areas, and then we have to identify the issues, and that's what we do. We basically use the data to come to conclusions. So that report will then be written up formally and submitted to the town, and we're hoping to provide you with recommendations about what the data tells us, and also we will be very clear what the data doesn't tell us. Where there may be need for additional studies, maybe we have to zoom in those problem areas. We don't know yet, but this is what we do. We use data to come to conclusions. Yep. And that's all I have really prepared for you, but I'm very much anticipate questions.
I think there's some people who probably aren't terribly excited about this because they fear that it may be bad news and have an effect on their property value. Clearly, the people here don't feel that way, although they would be part of it. But is it fair to extrapolate whatever information you get from one site, say across the street or down the road? What's the, you know what I mean by that?
Yes, I absolutely understand. Yeah, I mean, part of the reason why we're doing this is to understand, is there a problem in the first place? And again, we're not identifying particular properties, so it's not like it's saying in the newspaper, oh, Main Road 54, terrible, or whatever. But you want to know, I would want to know if your water is slowly making you sick. Because then I can do something about it. Now, can I automatically say, because your well is wonderful, your neighbor's well has to be wonderful? No. I mean, as in, like, with certainty, I would have to analyze it as well. Because if you think about how properties vary in size, how septic systems may be a little bit closer or farther away from your well, and I'm not talking about your own septic system, hopefully that's as far away from your well as possible, but what about across the street? Also, there are other issues. Could be don't want to go into detail, but there are many sources of groundwater pollution that are not necessarily directly related to septic systems. Could be anything in the world. I've seen crazy things. So, to answer your questions, we will identify areas. If you have 2, 3 households in a certain area that are all testing positive for bacteria, let's say, that will tell us there's probably something going on. And that's why we're really hoping to have a lot of participants, because the more data we have, the better our interpretation. For example, yes.
What are the impurities that you're looking at?
The impurities we're looking at this point, bacteria, E. coli, which is an indicator for fecal matter. So fecal matter would probably indicate something wrong with the nearby septic system. But it can also indicate that you may have
Or geese, there are geese.
geese. Well, I was going to say cows or animals.
I guess my concern is too, because a lot of southern Tiverton, we have farms.
Mm-hmm.
So phosphates, what are we looking at? Are we
Yeah.
looking at any of that?
Again, we need to have access to wells, so if we don't have
But what data would you be looking at?
bacteria mostly in nitrate, ammonia, phosphorus. So these are fertilizers. I mean, I'm sure most people have big lawns and they maybe have a gardener playing the same, so it's hard to tell us, hard to pinpoint exactly this nitrate comes from that guy or from that farm. But again, if we have more than one sample in some area, we can, it's a greater certainty in what we can say and what we can't say.
No, you wouldn't be testing for any pesticides.
No, I wish we could, but these are very expensive undertakings. What we can do in our lab is relatively affordable, but for pesticides, PFAS, and all this good stuff, you need a much larger budget.
So if it does test positive, what's the next step?
Next step is to create a map, or, yeah, a map would be ideal, right? Because a map is easy to communicate. So let's say an area where we find a lot of bacteria shows up in red. Areas where the water is clean, maybe green. So we will take the information and present it to the town. We probably have another meeting at that point, and the public, I assume, will be participating, where we then explain what we found. We will give recommendations. For example, this area that is bright red, we need to figure out what the heck is going on. Is it because failing septic systems? That means people should look at their septic systems and decide for themselves if maybe an upgrade of the septic system may be needed. I mean, I would want to know, right? Or if it's not a septic system, then maybe a different source. I can't anticipate what we find, but we will try our best to take the data and connecting it to the area where we've collected the data and use our scientific understanding. Does that make sense?
Can I
Yeah, of course.
right, so sorry everyone, I'm Bill Gerlach, I chair the planning board, I apologize for being late, traffic was a bit of a bear. To your question, sir, the data is meant to empower the town to talk about what may or may not be going on in terms of what is the intent of the data is to enable the town to have a conversation about what may or may not be going on, so that we, if required, can figure out an action plan for mediation, and/or the data can help inform the work of the planning board as we go through and consider various developments in and around town, right? One of our major concerns is that the quality of our groundwater remain intact and not be subject to any sort of degradation as a result of development. So that's a big reason why the planning board has worked with the town to contract with URI in order to do that. We're taking a look to make sure that we have facts and data in order to inform discussion and decision making. Does that help? And frankly, we do need to, like, we could sit here and hypothesize if X then Y, if A then B, in terms of action plans. But I think the first step is to get quantifiable data that's credible in order to inform a potential discussion.
Yeah, let's make all this scary. I'm very hopeful that the water you guys drinking from your wells is of high quality. But again, we don't know. We just want to ensure that the town has the information to identify problems before they blow up into whatever, public health crisis. Hopefully never. But
Yeah, I mean, that's an extreme
yeah.
sort of thing here. But I mean, many of you know that we're also working with, not with URI, but we're working with the water authorities in town to do additional analysis on our public drinking water infrastructure, right? So we have that angle covered. Now with the help of URI and this study, we're going to get a sense of what our groundwater is all about, right? And how well that is. So.
Will you get an idea of how much available groundwater there is with the volume the town can support for those, for homes and stuff?
That is not my understanding of the intent.
Yeah, that would require a little bit more sophisticated groundwater model, meaning we would have to measure the water levels. Water levels go up and down as during the year. During the summer, water levels go down because there's little recharge in form of precipitation. In the winter, the situation reverses and the water levels come up. So this up and down tells us a lot about what is going on in the subsurface. That's natural. On top of that is the amount of water pumped from each well. So if in some areas that we're pumping out more water than comes in naturally by precipitation, I always tell my students, think about a bathtub. If you have a bathtub where the same amount of water comes in then goes out. Let's say you really like your hot bath and you let the hot water go and the cold water go out. If you time it correctly, the bathtub will never overflow and never empties. Now, what happens if more water flows out? The bathtub will empty eventually, right? So if we do the same to our groundwater, if we extract more water than comes in, the water table will go down. That can lead, of course, to problems in terms of wells going dry, shallow wells, deep wells not. But shallow wells can go dry. Some of you may have a shallow well, a duck well, that periodically goes dry. If too many people pump from the same aquifer is the name for where the water is coming from, if too many people pump water from the same aquifer, you see the depletion.
So shouldn't we also be looking at that issue then with all these developments?
Yes, so let me interject here and keep me honest if I'm.
Yes.
The scope of this, consider this a step one, right? First step. We're looking at quality of the water, right? Step two, a potential step two, which would require additional contracting with URI or other entities that could help us, could look at the quantity of water. Step one is the quality of the water that we have here right now. From an overarching perspective of public health and safety, that's step one. Does that make sense?
But step one only makes sense if you continue on to step two in the long run.
I don't disagree with you. That takes time and money and a will.
So, is the depth of the well a factor in terms of the quality of the water? It would seem to me that it would be.
Very good question, but it's a big but. You're basically surrounded by salt water. So if you have own a coastal property, property near the beach, near the shore, what you will find is that pumping too much water in a deep well, in particular, is susceptible for that. You can pull in salt water. We call this saltwater intrusion. And again, without going into too much detail, near the coast, you find a freshwater lens sitting on top of salt water. Simply because the salt water is more dense, therefore it's on the bottom, and the freshwater is less dense, floats on the top. The interface where the two meet, you basically see the salt water going somewhat inland. It depends on the geology and other things, how far inland that salt water goes. So I've seen many instances in nearby towns where people with wells close at the beach cranked it up and they pumping spaghetti water.
If that's a coastal property, what about a property that's not coastal?
I would say, in general, the deeper the water, you are more protected from what comes in from the surface. Let's say you have a farm, or animals, a dog, or geese.
But you're not looking at that variable.
Not at this point. I mean, when we select the people participating in the study, hopefully all of you, we will ask you about your knowledge about your well. Unfortunately, that knowledge not always transfers from one homeowner to the next. For example, I'm on a well. My well is supposedly 180 feet deep in fractured bedrock. I live on a hill, far away from the ocean. I never ran out of water. Water quality is great. But many of you, who knows how deep their well is? A few.
I was just a Marcus deep.
Right? So what we don't want to do, at least at this point, because it would intrude on your well to figure out how deep your well is. I mean, there are ways to do that, obviously. But we're not planning on this. This would be phase 2, maybe in the future, when we would take into consideration these technical details.
I just want to, kind of happy to take this offline. Stu was gracious enough to remind me of the contract that we do have with URI, and it specifically does call out assessing quantity and quality of groundwater, right, as part of this initial engagement. So I misspoke, I stand corrected. We're going to want to make sure that we're getting both out of this stuff.
I believe at the last meeting, the lady that was here from URI talked about that and measuring levels in the wells.
Yeah.
And asking for access.
I unfortunately was not at that meeting either, but in any case, the contract that we have with URI covers both quantity and quality. We'll work through the details of making sure that the data that comes back speaks to both, so that it properly informs the activities of this board as well as the town overall.
So, in taking up on that, I didn't want to muddy the water yet, so we're also planning to select a few wells where we would install a logger. What is that? That's a device that we can program in our office to take samples of water table elevation every 5 seconds. We can do it. It's not very informative, but let's say we measure your water, your well, in 10-minute increments for 3 months or an entire year. We get a graph, once we download the data from the logger, that shows how the water table goes up and down. Or we need to be, we have to understand that if you have an active well, that water level goes up and down because you turn on the pump, you turn off the pump. So what we need is a well that is ideally not pumped. Some abandoned well or a well in the middle of the forest or whatnot. That's how we would address the water quality, at least as a first approximation. For a true deep understanding of the water quality, we would have to expand into modeling territory.
Quality or quantity?
Quantity. It is a quality. I'm sorry. Yes.
If you're looking at the height of the water, and it's made to test at night when people are in bed, the water should come up to whatever the static level is, through the night. And, I guess, can you monitor the time of the height when doing the water time of day, or is it strictly the day?
Like I said, we can measure every 5 seconds. So theoretically, yes, we could run it in the night and take samples when you guys are sleeping. It's possible. It's just more complicated.
Yeah, I understand. My well's 117 feet down, and I built the house 50 years ago. I used to look at it on a monthly basis, and I know in the summer it was maybe 6 feet, 15, 20 feet below the surface.
Mhm.
Winter it was maybe 6 feet. And I don't do it anymore, but when I did it back then, I see the water level changing.
Right, it is changing, absolutely. And what we are also very much interested in is how does a well respond to a rain event? Right, I mean, the rain is what is moving the water table up. Pumping is moving it down, but rain moves it up. So if we can connect observation of rain events to what we see in the well, that tells us a lot how quickly the well responds to the rain, and also how much storage volume is there. Right? If there's very little storage volume, we should see the water level going up way high, because there's very little storage to make room for that water coming from the surface. If the response is only very little, that's good, because it means the aquifer has a large storage capacity. So that's the part, the quantity part, but I wanted to keep it separate from quality, because we basically have not yet identified wells where we can install that. So if you're willing to open up your well literally for us to lower what is basically a metal stick on a rope, that's all we need.
Is there a target number of wells or a percentage of the overall participation that you would ideally want to be able to get access to in order to have
That's the great question.
good data?
Yeah. So as a scientist, my answer always is the more data, the better. But we need to find the amount of sample locations that matches our budget.
Yes.
So in other words, if I had 500 wells, 500 people participating would be wonderful, but we would exhausting but the number of samples that we can collect in one day, and that doesn't tell us anything. So short answer is, if we can have people strategically giving us access strategically over the various areas of our study area, that would be ideal.
So Ed, can we take an action to send a note out to the folks who are participating to ask the follow-up question about getting access to the well in order to do that measurement? And Ed may need some of the technical details so that we can set the appropriate expectation with
It would
residents.
only be a few wells because we only have a few of these loggers.
Okay, so, but like, what would that entail? When would you come during the day? Like, how many times would you come? Like, all of that stuff. And I think if you can send that out, maybe we can get a response, maybe we can get an appropriate number, and then the URI team can tell us, hey, we have too many people, that's not gonna fit the budget, and we'll try to figure out based on the address of the folks who have responded in the positive, which ones we wanna go with.
Exactly. And if anybody is here right now who hasn't indicated their willingness to participate, I have a few of these printouts. It's basically the topo map, and if you want to, you can just mark your location and then provide contact address down here, so we...
That's one way to try to source some information right here and now. Yeah. I
So
see.
if you're interested, I just leave it on the table.
Sure. Are there any other questions? So I apologize, I was late. Again, can we recap the next steps here? I understand that there's going, I'm sorry, something about October 15th.
Yeah. So this is the timeline as it stands right now. 9/11 today. We will work with the town to select the study participants according to what we just discussed, making sure we get a representative selection of wells. And then we will have another workshop that's much more hands-on, where we actually show you the bottles and whatnot a few days before Wednesday, October 15th. That's the date where we would like to sample. Of course, if that's a hurricane day, then we have to reschedule that. October 15th it is. And that would be the first round of sampling. Then we will repeat this in about a 3-month period to capture winter and then comes spring. Please.
Will you have a particular time that you want the sample collected on the 15th?
Not really, as long as the 15th, and hopefully you don't get up at midnight at 15th. So early morning, 15th, before you go to work, and drop it off on your way to work, or you come home at, I don't know, 4 o'clock. We probably we have to probably close the sampling collection at, I would say, no later than 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Because you guys have to then drive it over to URI and start the analysis. Yeah, we will specify those details come the workshop before the sampling.
So, excuse me, I want to just correct. Participants will be dropping their samples off at town hall,
Okay.
not driving to Narragansett over to you. Let's be clear.
You're welcome to visit us.
The process will be to take your sample and deliver it to Ed at town hall prior to 4 o'clock. Because at 4 o'clock, well,
Yeah. Well, let's actually, we're open until 6
On Wednesdays.
on Wednesdays.
I didn't even know that.
Or
All right.
6 on Wednesdays?
Well, I would set up, I would,
5 o'clock's the cutoff. Was that
Yeah.
by 5?
yeah.
How do we know if we're in the study? I was assuming because I got a letter to be here that I'm in the study, but I've not gotten any confirmation on that, other than the invitation to be here.
Yeah, so I was under the assumption that I didn't realize that there was going to be another round of study participant selection by October 1st, my understanding. And let me be apologetic to the folks here. We're figuring things out with the URI team. I appreciate some grace and patience with this. My understanding was that we have already communicated to a group of individuals who have graciously submitted their name for participation. Those people who we circled back with, we indicated to them that they were in the study. What I'm seeing in bullet number 2 does not jive with that.
Again, the simple answer is if all the participants are on the same road, it would not give us,
It would not.
yeah, we were wasting resources. So we need to simply look at it. And I think we're probably okay, including all of you. And again, if we have one well across the street, it tells us something too. So as long as we have the number of samples that we can support, then we do that.
So we have a water filtration system, so I guess we can't participate.
So take a look at your system. So speaking about my well, I have a metal pipe coming in my basement out of the wall, and right there is a faucet. And that's there to, when the, whatever breaks, the plumber turns off the water and evacuates the system so you can weld the pipes or whatever. That would be the spot.
Because I think you would find there's a lot of people in Tiverton, the water filtration system.
When we bought our house, we were told that there was, I forgot what exactly was it, was going to turn all of our clothes rusted color. And we were told the minute we bought the house that that was going to happen. And they said, before you put anything in, put in a water filtration system. I can't imagine most people didn't hear the same thing.
Yeah, it's iron manganese.
Iron.
Yeah, very typical, and nothing wrong with that.
Can we just clarify?
Oh, sorry.
People with water filters can participate if they take the samples before they hit the filter.
Correct.
That would be impossible for me to do in my system. Do we need to explain to people how that?
Because your system would hit before.
Yeah, I'm only, by the time it comes out of my tap, it's gone through the system. I do not have a.
What about outside?
No, that's going through the system.
So these are exactly the type of questions that we need to answer between now and first.
But keep me honest, we did not ask people.
People did volunteer that information.
They did. Okay.
Yes.
Let's do a follow-up.
I will.
If they
So-
have access prior to the filtration systems.
Yes. So I want to be incredibly clear here, is that, to your point, sir, we have to work with the URI team to do another scan of the folks who have raised their hand to say they want to participate. We will have information back from the URI team by October 1st. And at that point in time, Ed will communicate in the positive out to those people who have been selected based on all of the criteria that we have talked about. And it will be those people who should be coming to this workshop on either the 10th or the 13th. My chair.
To add to that, Ed's going to follow up with everyone that's signed up so far to find out if they have a filtration system and whether they can access their water prior to that filtration system. Does that make sense?
That seems like an important
Because
detail.
that's what URI needs to know.
Yep.
Also, Professor, just for clarification, we have a couple of people that are signed up that are on the same road currently, in a few different spots. How many participants from the road? 1, 2, 3?
So if we can, as a number of 30 is what we counting for per center round. So if, let's say we have participants on 20 different streets, and yeah, sure, we can accommodate a few from the same street.
It depends.
Okay. All right, depends.
So just to clarify, you or I will make the decision about who will participate in the program based on their location.
Correct.
So what you need from Ed would be the names and addresses of all of the people who have volunteered so far. And then you can take a look at those streets and exactly where those houses are, like plat and lot, and figure out whether that's
Correct.
and then you will make a decision as to who will be participating in the program
That's the idea.
by October 1st.
Correct.
Just a clarification there.
Sure.
And it will not be the planning board who decides.
No, it'll be you or I.
About a month ago, we came in here, we collected bottles, and we dropped them off. So those bottles, you're not using those at all?
Oh, we have analyzed those
Are
bottles.
you doing them on those bottles, too?
We have analyzed those. I just don't have the data in my head.
So those that are participated, it can be different, not,
So those members that have,
No, not necessarily, because,
there were cross communications last month.
yes.
We've tried to correct course.
Your question, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying that by October 1st, the people who participated then might not be in the study.
There is a chance of that,
Okay.
based on the new information we've received this evening.
I got, just a clarification. I mean, I know a little bit about wells, and usually you have a blue pressure tank that the water comes in, that usually has a faucet there. When I took my water sample, that's where I took it from. And that's before the filtration system, that's coming directly from the well. So I think everybody has one of those blue tanks, that's how you get the pressure in their house. So if you have a faucet there, what most people do, because they want to drain it, you take the water right from that spot there, and that's before your filtration system, so.
You might need to thank Mr. Parisi, your participant, so you can demonstrate how to do that.
A technical consultant
Yes.
on the project.
That means I'm on October 1st?
Any more questions? So, to recap. Decision by October 1st. Ed's going to send out an email prior to that to ask the question for water filtration. We'll pass all of that information to URI. Final decision from URI in terms of participants that meet all of the criteria for the study by October 1st. We notify those people. We come back on the 10th or the 13th. We go in-depth, handout, hardware, all of that sort of stuff.
Very, very hands-on, very easy.
And my very capable students already prepared the materials in the video, correct? So, yes.
Doctor, are there any other questions that we should ask potential participants right now so you can make your determination? For example, we have a filtration question. Are there any other limiters that we need to know about for you?
The only question, like I said, it would be, is there access to a well?
That's the other thing. We want to ask for the extra access of the well so that we have a critical number so that we can also deliver on the quantity portion of the scope of this study, in addition to the quality. Yeah.
Anything else?
The devil's in the detail, right?
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, please.
Just one thing occurred to me. What about a seasonal residence where you would not be able to give a winter sample? Like I mentioned, Jane.
Very good question, very good question. So, I don't know, it depends if you're comfortable with our students to come to your house and take the sample for you. We discussed that, but we would rather not entertain that, but
I would say that's an excluding,
The solicitors would put an X on that.
yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to introduce any risk or liability
Yeah.
into this.
So you wouldn't be able to participate because you'd be missing one data point, is that right?
let's see how many participants we end up with.
So I think the next question we have to ask on the follow-up is it a seasonal?
Thank you. That was,
Yeah, because the pump isn't even there, so we couldn't have someone come there anyway. The
right,
pump is removed.
right.
Yeah.
Good point. Anybody else? So exactly the type of ideas, questions. Yes, please.
The other thing is we can't pump it out, but we have access to well. So someone would have to pump another type of sample out from the
Oh,
well
so you have a
itself.
well without a pump?
No, we have a well, we have the pipe that goes into the well,
Yeah.
draws the water out to the pump. But there is access, you can open the cap and look down.
Yeah, we would rather not do that for multiple reasons. One is the well is pretty crowded with the pipe and then the electrical wire, and we have lost sample equipment because we get it entangled. Plus, there's always a faint chance that by opening repeatedly a well, you introduce pollution. We would do, of course, everything to avoid that, right? Using disinfected sampling equipment, but I would rather not open wells and then go down and then use equipment in the well. If it's an abandoned well without any, that would be ideal. I mean, anybody has an old well, doesn't need it, let us know.
I feel like every time we ask if there's any more questions, sort of get to that edge and then we come back. Any remaining questions? Going once? Going twice? Eric?
I just have one.
That was not a plan.
If you emailed me, and you were part of the group email that I sent out reminding everybody, I already have your name, have your address, but I will be following up to ask you the other questions that we came up with tonight, okay? So expect an email from me tomorrow.
If you want to confirm that you're on that list, come up and see him at the end.
Can you clarify that? Did you send out a group email, you said?
I sent out a group email to everyone who emailed me that I had listed in my Excel. But you can follow up with me after, come up and just check to make sure your name's on the
Like I
list.
received one initial email from you, but not a reminder. Is that what you just said? You said that a reminder?
There was a reminder of tonight's meeting, yes.
I did not receive that.
Oh, okay.
So let's check. Make sure you're on the list. There's always the chance that it went to spam or something like that.
We'll get there, so that, if you want to grab a sheet from the other list.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank